You are now proposing tariffs against the United States' three biggest trading partners. Economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price of tariffs.
I don't believe
Can you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow. But I can say that if you look at just pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had a lot of tariffs on a lot of different...
I still don't know if they're going to go through with the tariffs. I feel like this might end up being ruinous to a point that even the powers that be put their hands in. But I don't know. I don't know, man. I need get your foreign imports now. You know, get your Funko Pops while you can.
Countries, but in particular China, we took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and we had no inflation. In fact, when I handed it over, they didn't have inflation for a year and a half. They went almost 2 years, just based on what I had created. And then they created inflation with energy and with spending too much. So I think we will, I'm a big believer in tariffs. I think tariffs are the most beautiful word. I think they're beautiful. It's going to make us rich. We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. We're subsidizing Mexico for almost $300 billion. We shouldn't be subsidizing. Why are we subsidizing these countries if we're going to...
When he says subsidizing, by the way, what he means is that there is a export-import imbalance, which is not subsidizing. Basically, we get more imports from them cost-wise than we export to them, which makes sense if you think about it, because America isn't a manufacturing giant. What could we be exporting to send to Mexico that would be more valuable than the insane amount of like stuff produced by their agricultural industry and cheap labor brought over to us? Like, it's not a bad thing. Importing more from another nation than you export to them isn't a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, even remotely.
Well, prices did go up on some goods in your first administration, washing machines, tires. Will you punish CEOs?
Let me just explain to you. No. You mentioned washing machines. So you look at Whirlpool in Ohio. I got a call from Jim Jordan, one of the greats, congressman from Ohio. And he said, they're going out of business because South Korea and China...
Just enough the country's stupid enough to believe him. To be fair, you don't have to be stupid to not know how tariffs work. You're basically not taught that in school. Even if you are, schooling sucks anyway, so you don't retain much of it. And the media doesn't really talk about it. Like, maybe you would get this if you read, like, the New Yorker or some shit. Like, if you're one of those eggheads who actually keeps abreast of, like, media. The most engagement that people get with politics is through politicians, obviously, right? Like, most Republicans get their engagement through Trump. Most Democrats have gotten their engagement through, Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, whatever. Like, that's like the front man for the party. And the problem is that Donald Trump uses that platform, that power, very, very aggressively, and the Democrats don't. The Democrats talk about, like, the meaning of the hope of the change of the future of the dream of the American founders of the such and such. They don't talk about anything that makes people feel like they're involved, that makes people feel like they have any, like, input, that anything can change. Just a permanent institution, like an infinite, ever-expanding institution in which nothing can ever meaningfully change. That's what Democrats offer,
But how do you make sure that consumers don't wind up paying more? Will you punish CEOs who try to pass the cost of tariffs on to their customers?
Well, the market's going to take care of it. I mean, actually, the market takes care of it. And if it doesn't, we adjust it somewhat.
So when left-leaning tech CEOs censor right-wing voices on social media, you, the state, will come in and crack down on that. Whenever anything like that happens, you're willing to step your foot in the market. But when it comes to corporations raising consumers for prices, well, in those cases, that you're just going to leave it to the market. I see.
And drugs are pouring in. Almost as importantly, drugs are pouring in, maybe more importantly, drugs are pouring in at levels never seen before, 10 times what we had. They're just pouring in. We can't have open borders. And
cursory reminder, of course, as I always have to, that like 90% of the drugs that get brought in from the southern border are from citizens, not undocumented immigrants, like more than 90%. Why would you risk massive drug imports? Why would you risk that massive trade on people who have to flee when they see a cop versus just a corrupt business that runs the drugs and has deals with local police?
And you see what they've done in Colorado and other places. They're literally taking over apartment complexes.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
Doing it with impunity. They don't care. They couldn't They just are, they're in the
A
real estate.
Haitian
The local
pet
police
eating
say
gang?
that is not the case in Colorado.
Oh, it's
but
totally the case. I mean, I have it
you
on
don't
tape.
believe the local
I
police.
play it. I used to play it at my rallies every single night. No, it was, they're breaking into doors. They're taking over.
That's correct. Oh man, he's so open with how his brain works. Of course it's true. I used to play that bit at my rallies every night. Like, he's not even framing it through politics. It's just like a show segment, you know? He's so straightforward with how he thinks about these things.
I don't want to be breaking up families. So the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back.
Even kids who are here legally?
Well, what you're going to do if they want to stay with the father? Look, we have to have rules and regulations.
It really is crazy how birthright citizenship is now being framed as some kind of loophole. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, we have to do something to close the loophole where undocumented immigrants will have children that become U.S. citizens because they have them here in America. It's like, that's not a loophole. That is literally the point of birthright citizenship. That's the point. That's the whole point.
Let's talk about health care. I've been talking to Republican
this one's
lawmakers
good.
on Capitol Hill. They say it's no longer feasible to repeal and replace Obamacare because it's so entrenched in the system. Do you see it that way? Is that now off the table, repealing and replacing?
When John
Obamacare?
McCain let us down by voting, and Murkowski and Collins and whoever.
Also, she should really be calling it the Affordable Care Act. Like, I say Obamacare, everyone says Obamacare, but Trump said Obamacare because a lot of the people who voted for Trump genuinely don't know that Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act are different things.
John McCain gave his thumbs down after saying for 10 years that he wants to repeal and replace
Did
it.
I say different things? I mean same thing.
And I had a decision to make with Health and Human Services. I had a big decision to make. Do I make it as good as we can make it, or do I let it rot? And a lot of political people said, let it rot and let it be a failure. I said, that's not the right thing to do. And I had very good people in the medical area that handled that. And I said, what do you want to do? He said, we really have an obligation to make it as good as we can. And we did.
Which he did by attempting to strip it entirely and only getting stopped by John McCain. He's literally saying, like, yeah, the left loved John McCain because he stopped me from repealing Obamacare entirely. Anyway, a lot of people wanted me to, like, let it rot, but instead I decided to make Obamacare as best as I could by trying to repeal it entirely, which John McCain stopped me from. It's like he got rid of the mandate, which was the only unpopular part. Yeah, but he tried to get rid of all of it. John McCain was the only reason they didn't get rid of all of it.
But right now, we have something that I made the best of. I could have made the worst of it, and it would have fallen by the wayside. I did the right thing from a human standpoint. But, you know, I'm sort of proud of my decision. At the same time,
Like, he's genuinely trying to gaslight people on whether or not he tried to remove Obamacare.
Sir, you said during the campaign you had concepts of a plan. Do you have an actual plan at this point for health care?
yes, we have concepts of a plan.
He's
that
still
would be better.
doing this.
Still just concepts? Do you have a fully developed plan?
Let me explain. We have the biggest healthcare companies looking at it. We have doctors. We're always looking. I have the smartest people in that world looking at it and trying. And if they come up with something, I will present it. Now, maybe you won't be able to sell it.
It's just remarkable. Like, it has been nearly a decade since you first started running for the presidency, and you've yet to present a single healthcare plan in that time, despite being antagonistic to the existing one the entire time.
Quickly, when will we see your fully developed plan? When are you going to
I
show
don't know
the
that you'll
public
see it at all. I can only say that we have some of the best healthcare people. I've always tinkered with it. I think had I kept control, number one, Israel wouldn't have happened. Number two, Ukraine would have never happened. It would have never happened, Ukraine, Russia. But the number of people that are being killed, soldiers, young, beautiful soldiers, hundreds of thousands of people are being killed. And, you know, it's very interesting. Russia's lost probably 500,000. Ukraine's lost higher than they say, probably 400,000. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of bodies laying all over fields.
I like how he takes the time to say that the Ukraine's Ministry of Defense numbers are incorrect, but not that Russia's are incorrect, when Russia's been lying very actively about their casualties. So yeah, you know, Ukraine's been lying about their numbers. Russia's lost about 500,000.
For the sake of unifying this country, will you concede the 2020 election and turn the page on that chapter?
No. No, why would I do that? But let me just tell you, when you say the country is...
He has conceded it before. It's just like now there's no point because he won.
The press was unfair. Like, to me, the press was obviously unfair to me. The press, no president has ever gotten treated by the press like I was. And yet I got more votes than any Republican candidate in history. By far. It's not even close. So you say, what's that all about? The press has to straighten itself out because, honestly, it's lost all credibility. When that can happen,
that I agree with.
The press, I should have gotten no votes. None. And yet I got the highest number ever. And the reason is because I'm able to go on a show, even like yours, even though you're very hostile, I'm able to go on a show like yours. No, you are.
Well, hopefully you thought it was a fair interview. We covered a lot of policy ground.
Well, it's fair only in that you allowed me to say what I say. But, the answers, the questions are, pretty nasty.
No, but you're going in the oubliette. You tried so hard to avoid it. Your ass is going in the oubliette. I'm really sorry.
You would think the press would like to see strong borders, great education, a powerful military, so we have a country left, and all these different things. And somehow they don't want to see that.
Let me ask you, hopefully you think this interview was fair. We spent a lot of time talking.
Please don't put me in the fucking oubliette. Please, God. Please. Last question. Do you ever plan to stop being the greatest president of all time? Sir.
I saw that just prior to COVID coming in. I had polls that were the highest anyone. McLaughlin and Fabrizio said George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, if they came back from the dead and they ran as president and vice president, couldn't beat you, sir.
Wins by a 1.6% margin. God almighty. You gotta love him. You don't have to, actually. Editor's note, I did not, in fact, have to hand it to Al-Qaeda. Yeah, I know.
We'll leave it there unless you'd like to say anything more.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you don't go to the oubliette. You're not the worst interviewer. There are worse ones. All right. What a worthless interview. I mean, he certainly wasn't held to anything. If you think that was bad, guys, if the media's been afraid to really hold his feet to the fire over the past 4 years, you think they're going to when he's president? No, 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 no. No, 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 no.